All right, guys, I want you to listen to what this Silicon Valley leader said.
I think U.S. tech companies who say we will not support the U.S. military. You know, we will not work on any technology that helps our military, but yet goes into China and facilitates the Chinese government surveilling their people, is pretty shocking. I think it's very important that U.S. technology companies support our country, our government.
That's a very rare interview that Maria landed here. Oracle co-founder Larry Ellison throwing jabs at Google over its controversial decision to pull out of its contract running with the U.S. Department of Defense, while at the same time expanding business in China. Now, that decision was made in sharp contrast with Amazon's decision to do business with the U.S. military. But it was just last week that we had this man on our show, Silicon Valley heavyweight T.J. Rogers. The company he founded, Cypress Semiconductor, had many contracts with the U.S. Department of Defense, and yet the fiercely independent leader said neither company, Google or Amazon, should be a pariah.
That was our position with if you want to go back to basic principles, I believe there ought to be a strong division between corporate America and the government. I don't think companies should be politicizing what they do one way or the other. Instead of pitting the two CEOs against each other, they've offered us two models, two different stocks to invest in, two very successful companies. America and Americans will both be better because of both companies. And I think this is a choice that individual investors should be making for themselves.
That, my brilliant father would say, is your dollar vote. You can pick one or the other and vote with how you feel. Let's bring in independent tech expert and journalist Lance Ulanoff, who's joining us, along with Neuberger Berman senior research analyst Daniel Flax. Daniel, I want to go to you first. You pick, analyze, and reject tech stocks every minute of the day. Have you begun to see any impact on either Google or Amazon regarding this Department of Defense issue or the Pentagon contract?
Liz, so far we have not, and we're watching these companies closely, and certainly not every decision that the management teams make will necessarily be the correct one. But stepping back, when we look at the larger trends at work here, the move to mobile, to cloud, really the creation of digital assets, both Amazon and Google, for different reasons, are really at the forefront of these trends. And so when we look, for example, at Amazon building up an e-commerce platform, their Amazon Web Services business, a growing advertising business, there's a lot we like. And while Google, sure, there's going to remain controversy in certain areas, as there is with Amazon and all of these giants, but we like what we're seeing with the core search business. We like what we're seeing with YouTube. They have been building a cloud platform where we think they're going to continue to create a lot of value. So as a longer-term investor, we continue to like both of these companies.
Now, this is interesting, Lance, because you have Daniel saying, let's go all business. Let's just look at who has that business advantage. However, I would also say that maybe this conversation about Pentagon contracts takes on added significance in light of the fact that China and Russia have tried to meddle in our elections. There is a lot going on. They found the tiny little rice pea-sized chips, these spy chips in the servers for some of these companies. Does that affect any kind of what you're hearing from Wall Street or Main Street about whether to buy one or the other stock?
No, not necessarily. But, you know, I just would say about that rice-sized chip, obviously Apple, Amazon, and others have said basically it's a false story. So we're still waiting to find out the truth of that. But it's absolutely true that these people are trying to infiltrate our business, and it is a concern. And you have to look at Google's decision and Amazon's decision and say, well, if a company like Google decides not to sell anything to the Defense Department or not to sell anything to the government, well, the government's going to find that technology elsewhere, and apparently it's going to find it from Amazon. Does this, affect their positions? Google, or Alphabet, is a massive company with so many different bets and making money, obviously, mostly through advertising and through other areas. So I don't think it's going to have a major impact on it at all. And same thing for Amazon. I don't think it's a major part of their business, but it is the kind of thing that everybody looks at and goes, well, wait a minute, who's making the right choice?
Well, I'll tell you, if we do a market check right here, we do have the Dow Jones Industrials up 482 or so points, 485. Amazon's not yet, I say not yet, a Dow component, but something tells me that it as a retailer, just really taking on Walmart, which is a Dow component, Daniel, might at some point join the Dow. What do I know about that? But let me then dovetail here, because Amazon's coming out with earnings, but so is Intel. Snap is coming out. Who has the potential to dazzle after the bell, Daniel?
We think, Liz, that Amazon is going to have strong results, could see upside to expectations. We're also expecting strong results from Alphabet. I think when we look across the continuum, what we are focused on is trying to understand what is changing or progressing with the fundamental drivers of these companies. You mentioned Intel. The company obviously has they've had some component shortages, which may impact a little bit of their lower-end PC numbers. There's obviously a search for a new CEO there. When we look at some of the media properties, social media properties like Snapchat, they're really trying to refocus their business in some respect and try to figure out how best to engage with their users. And they also have some execution challenges which they're working on in terms of their user interface in the app. So
yeah, well, that brings me to you, Lance. Is Snapchat the Twitter of today? I mean, Twitter has found its footing, okay? They swung to profitability. They were able to show better ad sales. They're looking a lot stronger. Snap is still really kind of muddling along. It is young in its life, let's give it that. But what do you think about Snapchat?
I think it faces significant challenges. It has a tremendous competitor in Facebook, which basically created Instagram stories, which is a replication of what Snapchat did. Snapchat has been trying to do things like group video and adding more AR features, but they struggle because their core user base are teens, and teens are not buyers. They're not the people who spend money on things that advertisers try and sell people on. And they struggle to attract the adults that do spend the money. Worse yet, the last time they had earnings, they showed that their user numbers had gone down. That is a very concerning trend. And if we see that happen again, I think it's a big problem for Snap.
Does anybody see a problem for Intel? Intel comes out after the bell. It is having a nice move of more than 5% today, $44 and change for the stock. Leadership issues. And Daniel, I know you look at these things, but you had Brian Krzanich leaving in a scandal. He was forced out, breaking rules from the company. And then now everybody's wondering, well, what really happens here? Because if you look at a comp chart between Intel and Advanced Micro Devices, AMD suddenly, I mean, I used to cover this stock 10, 15 years ago, is not doing well. It is killing it. What do you think? If you had to pick between Intel and AMD, Daniel?
Well, actually, Liz, we see better opportunity in other names in the chip sector.
Okay, which ones?
So we like Texas Instruments. I know the market's disappointed with some of their outlook, but they have good exposure to key areas within industrial and automotive. And so when you think about what's going on in those industries, you have more intelligence, more sensors that are finding their way. There's the so-called Internet of Things. And we look at a company like Texas Instruments, despite some of the macro concerns, as being very well positioned. Another name we like is Analog Devices, which also has key exposure to industrial, to automotive, to telecommunication. And they, too, are helping to provide a lot of the brains behind the build-out of next-generation infrastructure. So we see opportunities within the semiconductor industry in other names, and we'll certainly look to see what Intel has to say this evening.